What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be going through my top Week 13 waivers. 10 players total that you guys can pick up to boost your squad entering Week 13 of fantasy football. As we know, with crunch time heating up for your guys' playoff push, these pickups can help you pick up some wins through bye weeks and potential injuries and potentially set you up for a bye week in your own fantasy football league. Again, hopefully you guys won in Week 12, but if you didn't, I'll be outlining 5 main players and 5 honorable mentions that can help you get the dub entering Week 13. But either way, if you're 9-3, 10-2, 8-4, or if you're just fighting for that 6th seed, any one of these players can help you secure the dubs down the stretch to clinch your playoff spot. But before we get into the video, as always, we're at the intro. All right, before I get into the main pickups, of course, as you guys know, if you've been watching the series, players probably rostered, but you guys can check to make sure, in that 40 to 70% roster ownership range. Brian Robinson, running back of the Washington Commanders, clear workload on the ground, looks to be an integral part of that Washington offense down the stretch. Gus Edwards, running back of the Baltimore Ravens, gained back his RB1 status on the Baltimore Ravens as soon as he came back from injury. Looks to be their lead back down the stretch. George Pickens, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, does play tonight. Very talented young rookie wide receiver, has been outperforming Deontay Johnson from an efficiency standpoint in the last few weeks. Just needs that target share to go up as a whole, but I do think he could be a wide receiver 3 type down the stretch in fantasy football. Darius Slayton, wide receiver of the New York Giants, the clear #1 target of Daniel Jones in this passing attack, has been really good. Popped off again against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I do think he can be a wide receiver 3, top 36 level wide receiver down the stretch. Treylon Burks, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, had yet another breakout week, 4 catches, 70 yards. Also had that touchdown on Derrick Henry's fumble. If you guys had him in fantasy, you enjoyed those 6 points. But I mean, Treylon Burks looks like he could be a potential league-winning type of wide receiver down the stretch. I wouldn't be shocked if he got up to, top 25 wide receiver 2 level status, given the talent, given the opportunity at hand to become that clear #1 wide receiver for Ryan Tannehill on the Tennessee Titans offense. Michael Gallup, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, had his breakout game, 5 catches, 63 yards, 8 targets, 27% target share on Thanksgiving. Looks to be fully recovered from that ACL injury that was bothering him in his first few weeks back. So I do think he could be a wide receiver 3 type down the stretch. And then finally, Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver of maybe the Dallas Cowboys, maybe the New York Giants. We don't exactly know where Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be at yet, but as soon as he signs, we clearly know that he's a talented player. We clearly know that either on the New York side, he could potentially be a #1 wide receiver, or on the Dallas side, he's going to get a lot of efficient looks in a great offense. So Odell Beckham Jr., we know he's a good player. We know he's going to be in a good situation for fantasy points. As soon as he signs, he could be a top 40 level wide receiver with the upside, like I said, to be a top 25-ish level guy if he returns to the form like we know from Odell Beckham. But now let's get into the #1 pickup of the week, and that's going to be Jameson Williams, wide receiver of the Detroit Lions, 39% rostered in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, and I've made reference to him multiple times on these videos. I want to say I've been citing him since week 6, week 5, like early on in the waiver wire cycle. But with Jameson Williams, if he is still available on your waiver wire, now is the time to go scoop him up. 12th overall pick, as we know, from Alabama. He hasn't played in a single game in his rookie season, but as we know, he was a great prospect. Legit 4.2 burners, paced top 5 wide receiver yardage in his final year at Alabama, despite sharing the field with John Mechie and other great weapons at that Alabama program. And 12th overall pick for a reason. There's a reason why this guy went that high in the draft. Super talented player. Now he's being activated off of IR with a legit chance that he suits up this upcoming week for a Detroit offense that really needs that secondary weapon to Amon St. Brown in the passing game. I think there's a real opportunity for Jameson Williams to blossom down the stretch, a top 25-ish level wide receiver in fantasy land. Again, he's available in 61% of Yahoo leagues. He is a mustache player. This could be your golden ticket through the fantasy playoffs. We're talking about a player that plays down the stretch Jacksonville Jaguars, Minnesota Vikings, New York Jets, Carolina Panthers, and the Chicago Bears down the stretch. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a wide receiver 2, maybe even a low-end wide receiver 1 down the stretch, given the efficiency, given the talent, yards after catch ability, being able to stretch the field. If he is able to carve out a significant role right off the bat for Detroit, I have no questions about his viability down the stretch. In terms of fab, you can realistically make the argument that he's a 100% fab type of player at this point because you're just looking for upside, especially in those fantasy playoffs. But modestly, like 40, $50. But if you have to spend your whole fab at this point, go secure that upside that Jameson Williams holds. Now we got the number 2 pickup of the week. In my opinion, it's going to be Zonovan Knight, running back of the New York Jets, rostered in 0% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. And the rookie Jets running back really took the NFL by storm this past week. Obviously, as we know, Michael Carter, ankle injury, missed the rest of the game after getting injured early. But we saw Zonovan Knight really shine in his opportunity. 103 yards from scrimmage on 17 touches, including catching all 3 of his targets. The real question mark here is the severity of Michael Carter's ankle. Like, he's expected to be questionable for next week game against the Vikings, which, as we know, if he were to miss that game, leaves a giant opportunity for the team's new official number 2 back with Zonovan Knight to build off this impressive performance from Sunday. And even once Michael Carter does return to the lineup, I feel like Zonovan Knight has already established himself clearly over Ty Johnson, who worked behind him in this past game, and James Robinson, who, as we know by now, was a healthy scratch for the team on Sunday. If we get any weeks where Michael Carter is out moving forward, I think you can view Zonovan Knight as a fringe top 15, top 20 level play at the running back position. But I do think even with Carter in the fold, he can have a Tyler Algier-esque, mid to high end running back 3 level role on this team. Implied value here, of course, is that if he's the lead back at any point down the stretch, this offense looked much more functional with Mike White at the helm. So I definitely think he's going to cost a pretty penny on your waiver wire. Again, talented, young, rookie running back, receiving role in his first game, filling in for Michael Carter. I do think that this Jets offense could be a much improved unit down the stretch, and I want the potential lead back in that situation. So in terms of fab, I think 20 to 30% should be able to get it done. But again, looking for upside at this point, I don't even mind going higher than that. My number 3 pickup of the week is going to be Kyren Williams, running back of the Los Angeles Rams, rostered in 36% of Yahoo leagues. And new lead running back in LA, as we know, Kyren Williams usurped Cam Akers in terms of usage this week for the Rams. He handled all the third down, all the 2-minute work for this team, as probably expected. But Kyren also handled the short yardage, also handled the overall early down work. That was my biggest surprise of the week. And I thought this was going to be a pure committee. Cam Akers was going to mix in, especially on those early downs, with Kyren Williams working as that space back, satellite back, given his size, given his receiving profile. I didn't think he could be a full-fledged lead back, but, he might have proved me wrong. He looked like the better back in comparison to Cam Akers, and he looked much more comfortable in pass down situations, like, as I mentioned, his prospect profile would have indicated. I still have my question marks regarding Kyren Williams. I still think, again, it's going to end up materializing into committee backfield. And as we know, the Rams offense at this point could be an absolute train wreck down the stretch, especially if Matthew Stafford is withheld. As we know, Cooper Kupp is already out. So I don't really think this Rams offense is going to be making any noise down the stretch. So I'm really questioning the upside here. Feel more so with the high-end running back 3-level outlook, given the potential receiving work. And if you need a running back for a playoff push, especially if you built a, a 0 running back type of team, I think Kyren Williams could definitely provide you a solid baseline down the stretch, like I've kind of mentioned. In terms of fab, I think 20 to 30% is more than adequate when it comes to Kyren Williams. Number 4 pick of the week is going to be Zay Jones, wide receiver of the Jacksonville Jaguars, rostered in 24% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. And Zay Jones had a very explosive outing versus the Ravens, reeling in 11 of his 14 targets and running 39 of the 40 routes for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And as we've seen in 3 of his last 5 games, he's commanded 10 plus targets in an ascending Jaguars team. Looks like the clear wide receiver 2 of this attack after Christian Kirk, and an offense who, as I mentioned, has been peaking recently with the play of young franchise quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Since week 6, Trevor Lawrence is the 8th best quarterback in the NFL in terms of his EPA plus CPOE composite, meaning EPA, expected points added. CPOE means completion percentage over expectation, which basically says he's adding value to this offense and is generally much more accurate than the average quarterback. So definitely a good sign of the ascending quarterback play that Trevor Lawrence is displaying. And with Lawrence playing this well, and with matchups again against the Lions and Titans passing defenses in the next 2 weeks, I expect Zay Jones to continue producing and help you clinch a spot in your playoffs. So in terms of fab, 10 to 20% should be able to get it done. But if you have to go more, I have no problem with that, especially if you need depth. I think that, especially for the next 2 weeks, Zay Jones profiles as a top 40 level wide receiver. And then finally, number 5 on my pickups list is going to be Mack Hollins, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders, 21% roster in Yahoo fantasy leagues. He is the clear wide receiver 2 of the Las Vegas Raiders and is currently a top 40 wide receiver in fantasy, having a real opportunity to be a flexible option in the coming weeks. Nothing really much else I should say on Mack Hollins, other than the fact that he's set for a wide receiver 2 role rest of the season on a team that throws the ball at a top 10 volume rate in the entire NFL. He doesn't have the long-term upside of a Jameson Williams or even a Zay Jones, in my opinion, but he's the perfect cheaper pickup that can help you get through the last few weeks. In terms of fab, I don't think you'll have to spend more than 5 to 10%, but I do think he could be a very good depth piece down the stretch. Finally, my honorable mentions, my 5 names listed here. Van Jefferson, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams, has his best game of the season by far, catching that touchdown, about 12 PPR points. Looks like he could be the lead wide receiver of the Rams down the stretch, in my opinion, especially with Tyler Higbee spending the majority of his game in blocking phase rather than running routes. JaMycal Hasty, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If we got negative news on Travis Etienne, he could absolutely vault up to this list. But for now, from what I know, Travis Etienne is expected to come back next week. There you have Darrell Henderson waiting in the wings. He didn't play this past week. Although JaMycal Hasty looked really good, looked really explosive, got work in the receiving game this past week, filling in for Travis Etienne, I really just think that was a one-spot gap situation rather than something that can be applicable rest of the season. I see a path for him to become a high-end handcuff to Travis Etienne, given the status of Darrell Henderson. And on the flip side, if Travis Etienne is active, his role is all but nothing. Ty Johnson, running back for the New York Jets, mentioned that Zonovan Knight is the main target of the waiver wire of that Jets backfield. But if Michael Carter is expected to miss more time, in maybe 2-3 weeks, I do think that Ty Johnson could be a fine 0 RB off the waiver wire level pickup, probably produce some RB3 weeks if Michael Carter were to miss any time. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, pinnacle game on Thursday afternoon against the Detroit Lions. I don't expect him to be out targeting Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs on a week-to-week basis. So as a result, he might be going for more than I'd be willing to spend in my league. Finally, Jordan Mason, running back of the San Francisco 49ers. As we know, Elijah Mitchell sprained MCL out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. McCaffrey is dealing with his own knee irritation. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be fine. I think he's going to be able to play next week. If not next week, at least the week after. But I do think that there's a high value handcuff role for Jordan Mason in this offense. As we know, Elijah Mitchell was taking a lot of work from Christian McCaffrey already. And that's going to revert back to pre-Elijah Mitchell days, that 1 week where he had all of the touches, 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey was the lead guy there. But even if that were to be the case, even if Jordan Mason was a pure handcuff, no, San Francisco wants to run the ball. We know that they're a very effective rushing offense, and we know that there's a big workload to be had if Christian McCaffrey were to ever miss time. So Jordan Mason, out of all the depth running backs on San Francisco, even including a guy like Ty Davis Price, would be my preferred option. And again, because he doesn't have big numbers this week, I think you could pick him up for relatively cheap. But either way, I appreciate you guys for making it to the end of this video. Let's try to get this video to over 100 likes. So if you enjoy, hit that like button. Let's try to hit that like goal. And of course, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers as always. Appreciate you guys for that continued support. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But till then, good luck in your matchups. Pay attention for later today. I will be dropping my top streamers, and stay tuned. Take care.
Wire me the money.